The Great Depression in 12 minutes. So this is coming from the channel Casual Economics. This is a suggestion via a channel member. Let's jump into it.
The Great Depression was the worst economic downturn in modern history.
So
People
far.
went from parties, jazz music, and riches in the roaring 20s to losing their life savings and standing in bread lines in the span of a few years. And the Depression wasn't just in America. Its impact spread across the world and ultimately led to the start of World War II. But what exactly caused the Depression? And what lessons can we learn from it?
Black Tuesday.
Let's start in 1918. World War I has just ended, and American soldiers are returning home having won the war. Ah, it feels good to be back. During the war, women had for the first time begun to enter the workforce, and with men returning now, the economy saw a post-war boom. This economic boom, alongside a growing culture change, created the era known as the Roaring Twenties. Party! At this time in Detroit, Michigan, a man named Henry Ford would revolutionize transportation with the Ford Model T car.
A lot more than
Facing
that.
huge demand for the car, his company introduced the process of the moving assembly line. This mass production dropped the car's price from $780 in 1910 to $290 in 1924.
Guys, keep in mind, a lot of other things were also from around that time did the same thing, not just the cars themselves, right? That assembly line changed the way everything is done, not
Making
just
it
cars.
the first inexpensive car for the masses. By 1927, the 15 millionth Model T would roll out of the factory. You get a car. You get a car.
Oprah
Everyone
references.
gets a car. Many companies would copy this assembly line process to mass produce other inventions, including the radio, washing machine, and vacuum. With mass production of new products and improved advertising using the radio, the age of consumerism had officially begun.
Oh no.
Everyone wanted the latest and greatest new product. To help with the demand, banks began giving out loans more freely to people, so that they could buy these new products on credit with money they didn't yet have. Times were good. People were partying, there was jazz music, and a spirit of social liberation. Good to see you at the party, old sport. Prohibition had started in 1920.
Bro, bring back calling everybody old sports, guys, regardless of their age.
But meant little to this new generation.
And wearing suits.
The
Bring back
parties
wearing
were bigger,
suits.
the morals were looser, and Wall Street became the place to be. From 1921 to 1929, the US stock market increased sixfold, driven by the post-war boom, easy credit, and all the demand for new consumer products.
Right.
As the public learned about these incredible returns from the stock market, everyone began putting money in and talking about it more. This created a snowball effect.
Yeah, but most of them were like buying on margin, though, guys.
Whereas the stock market continued to go up,
And that crushed
people began
them.
to blindly sink all their savings into stocks, and some even took out loans, which further drove prices up. When people believe no price is too high for a stock, that can be a warning sign that the price is no longer based on fundamentals
Berkshire Hathaway.
and may have been driven up to irrational levels.
Absolutely.
Although
Irrational.
stock prices were reaching new highs, something wasn't right. By the mid-1920s, the economy and demand for products had slowed drastically. With Europe still recovering from the aftermath of World War I, and few countries being able to afford the new consumer items, global trade was stalling. This didn't matter as people were still overwhelmingly optimistic and expected the stock market would continue to see record yearly performances each year. Extreme greed and unrealistic fantasy filled the air. With margin, people could even buy stocks for only 40 to 10% of the actual stock price,
Right.
and then pay off their loan when the stock sold for large profits.
Yeah, that didn't happen. Like a lot of the times, specifically at that time, buying on margin, and you guys are about to enter into like one of the worst times in financial history? Oh no.
I would like to take out a loan. Sure, what for? A house, a business, a farm?
A
to buy
stock.
stocks. Fine by me. Here you go. By 1929, 40% of US consumer debt was being used to purchase stocks. And in that same year, the US had just elected a new president, Herbert Hoover, who famously said, "We in America today are nearer to the final triumph over poverty than ever before in the history of any land. The poorhouse is vanishing from among us."
Okay.
To many people, a skyrocketing stock market was a sign of a healthy, booming economy.
Right.
But things were about to take a dark turn. catastrophe would hit. On October the 24th, 1929, a day that became known as Black Thursday, the stock market would see heavy liquidation, with a record 12.9 million shares sold, and the entire stock market fell 11%. This day marked the beginning of the Great Depression, and the following week there would be Black Tuesday, where the market fell 12%, with a record-breaking 16.4 million shares sold.
Okay. That's what I was talking about, not the Thursday. You get what I'm saying.
Eventually, in the span of 2 weeks, stocks had lost about a third of their value. People who had borrowed money to invest were crushed, and many people lost their life savings. However, the worst was yet to come. The common belief is that the stock market crash caused the Great Depression, but this is not entirely true. The stock market triggered a recession, but the real cause of the Great Depression was that many banks had extended too many bad loans and were speculating too much.
Oh, it doesn't sound like 2008, guys. Doesn't it sound like it? And it's interesting because this is what we're setting up for right now. Like 2008 was bad, absolutely, for the economy. But like, understand, there are a lot of bad loans out there right now. I mean, don't get me wrong here. The FDIC put out a good amount of things to hopefully shield people, like requirements to purchase houses and things that are like nearly impossible for the average American to actually reach, right? But that's fine here, right? Thank you, Jerome Powell. But the point is here, guys, bad loans are still being put out there.
At this time, many US banks were small and independent shops that lent out a large amount of their assets to people for stock market speculation. As the stock market crashed, these banks went out of business overnight. There was no deposit insurance at the time, so if a local bank closed its doors, people lost their money.
Right.
With headlines of many banks shutting down, people began to panic and pull their savings from healthy banks. This created bank runs on otherwise healthy banks that had to turn around and try to get all their customers' money all at once.
Right.
This became a serious problem when in New York City, a false rumor started that the Bank of the United States refused to sell a man's stock. This was enough to cause over 25,000 people to crowd the bank, and by the end of the day, $3 million had been withdrawn from the bank. Wow. Fear was in the air, and worried of a larger bank run they couldn't handle, the Bank of the United States closed its doors and asked the state to take over the bank's assets. Soon after, the bank failed to get support for a short-term loan to stop the bank run and would ultimately close its doors for good. Right. It accounted for a third of the total $550 million deposits lost in the Depression. This sent shockwaves across the banking industry, and many banks began to call in loans and sell assets in order to stay liquid. 1/3 of banks in America would ultimately fail in this time period.
Wow. Hey, Joe, I just sold my car and have a few bucks now to pay you back. Which bank are you with again?
Are you crazy? Not a chance I'm leaving my money in any of those banks again.
Right.
With people choosing to hold their money outside of banks, the money supply in the US declined 31% from 1929 to 1933. And deflation has devastating effects on an economy. By causing the
specifically asset prices
value of money to go up, it reduces consumers' willingness to spend money, discourages investment, and increases the burden for those in debt. All of this leads to wages and income falling. And through this all, the Federal Reserve stood back, allowing this money supply contraction and the banking failures to happen without any intervention.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I do think that banks should not be in a place in terms of our government that makes it so some of them are too big to fail. I think sometimes if they're willingly and openly taking advantage of their clients, right? Like specifically giving them super terrible, let's say, yields on their savings that are actually in the bank, guys. I think we should let some of these banks fail. Period. And specifically with the FDIC, they basically insure whatever money you're putting into your bank account. So I do think that you should just let these banks fail, some of them, because if they don't start treating the American citizens, in an adequate manner, like listen, the people themselves at this very specific time, even though we're making so much more money than at this time, if so many people are suffering in terms of the economy, then why exactly are you not trying to bail the people out? Like I would rather personally let my tax dollars go to bail some people out rather than going to bail a bank out that is literally doing the same exact thing that they got caught for doing in 2008. Right now, what about that?
A crucial mistake that has been
bailing
widely
them out.
criticized for making the Depression much worse than it needed to be. Through all of this, US President Herbert Hoover had no idea how to fix this and would largely be blamed for the lasting duration of the Depression. Following the initial stock market crash, there was a growing sentiment for isolationist and protectionist policies. In 1930, he passed the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act to protect US farmers and other industries from foreign competitors.
Yeah, this is
It
basically what's
increased
happening
tariffs
now.
on foreign imports to the US by about 20%, which then immediately led to 25 countries retaliating and putting their own tariffs on American goods.
Right.
Global trade would plummet even further from this, declining 66% worldwide from 1929 to 1934. Global trade was a relatively small piece of the American economy at the time, but this policy only made things worse. In total, the Great Depression would last over 10 years and mark the worst economic downturn in the history of the modern world.
Hold on, let me see this. Oh wait. Okay. Yeah, I mean, like, listen. That's basically what's happening right now. The market is, in fact, crashing. There are going to be a lot of people making a gigantic, and I mean gigantic amount of money, because obviously whatever goes down goes right back up, right? Obviously, this is a gigantic amount of time. It's going to be completely honest here. That's a big distance, right? But whatever goes up must come down eventually. But either way.
The Dow Jones would fall 90% from its high in 1929, and many lost their jobs as companies shut down en masse.
That's going to happen.
9 million savings accounts were wiped out. Over 9,000 US banks had failed. Industry halted, and unemployment in the US reached 24.9%, its highest point in history. To make matters worse, there was a period of severe dust storms in the middle of the US that caused drought, high winds, and hurt many farms in what became known as the Dust Bowl.
Right.
The worst man-made ecological disaster in American history. As farming in the US slowed down, and with 1/3 of Americans still in agriculture, this would have massive consequences. Homelessness and breadlines became a common sight. In America, there would be 34 million people without any income. Shantytowns began appearing across the country and got the nickname Hoovervilles after the now disgraced president.
Hoovervilles.
Could it get any worse? In 1932, the US elected President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who promised drastic changes and action to get the country out of the Depression. With the New Deal program, for helping the needy, he established a minimum wage, overtime pay, unemployment insurance,
Yeah, a lot of this is still being utilized, and like social welfare.
and a social security program. As for major banking reforms, he enacted federal deposit insurance on bank deposits to help prevent bank runs. And he also added the Securities and Exchange Commission for better reporting and scrutiny on public companies. FDR's New Deal programs helped to stabilize the banking industry and restore the public's confidence. However, it would still take several years for the US economy to fully bounce back. With other countries around the world having also suffered from the Great Depression, this led to the rise of extremist governments, and World War II would begin just a few years later in 1939. It wasn't until the start of World War II in 1939 that the Great Depression truly ended. It was only at this time that the unemployment rate fell below 10%, and the US saw vast stimulus to support war efforts. Economists still argue how much intervention is needed to solve an economic disaster and the effect of the New Deal program. Many of the lessons learned from the Great Depression are still used in the modern day,
Yeah, they are.
including the need for a small, stable amount of inflation to boost consumer spending and business investment, an
like
increased role in
2%.
government spending, and the assistance from the government to boost the economy when a recession occurs. By learning from the past, we can better understand our current economic system and see any potential dangerous parallels in the future. In the end, it was greed that drove people to believe that there was no price too high for a stock and made many banks take on bad loans. And just like all bubbles, an overinflated market always sees the same ending of a painful crash.
Yeah, that's where we are right now, guys. That's like, listen, we are absolutely overinflated right now. Asset prices are crazy. Just look at the price of vehicles; it's crazy, right? So we're definitely in a current like overinflationary event. I can only imagine that things are going to get basically worse. What am I- Whoa! Excuse me. So I can only imagine that things are going to get worse, guys. Like basically by definition, the past normally repeats itself, and it is what it is, guys. In this context, I do understand. Like, keep this in mind. I am absolutely for the concept of tariffing all the countries that are tariffing us. Like, I understand you don't want it to happen, right? I understand other countries are completely angry at us. They don't like us anymore, type of thing, right? But bro, you have tariffs on us. Like, you know that, right? Like, you're putting barriers to for us Americans to do business in your country, right? You are. So I do think that if you want to make an argument kind of regarding the tariff specifically, make sure you're not in a country that is already tariffing us. I think that'll be a more like genuine argument. Like, fight for your country to stop tariffing our stuff. Then maybe we can stop tariffing you, potentially. Right, 0 for 0. I think Europe is trying to push right now, right? Isn't that interesting? Because guys, I live half the year in Europe, and I can definitely tell you I was looking in Europe about a couple of years ago. We were looking to buy a car. I was like, you know what? I want an American muscle car in Spain, bro. The price of that Mustang was like at the time maybe 30,000 less than like a bro, like a supercar in America, like not a super car, but like let's say a Z06 Corvette, right? Like that was a basic. Think about the price of a Z06 Corvette in the United States of America. If you know cars, if you're a car guy or car girl, guys, you understand what I'm saying here. Think of the price of a Z06 Corvette. That was the price of like a base model 5.0 Mustang. Okay, like just the bottom, not even like the GT Premium, just that's it. Okay, it wasn't a convertible, none of these things. It was just a Mustang. Okay, a V8 5.0 Mustang. And why was it so crazily expensive, bro? That doesn't make any. Oh, because you guys have crazy tariffs on our products, right? I wondered, why are there no American cars here? Right, like in Spain, the south of Spain, everything is all these like small engined, type of vehicles, right? That we just don't make and we don't utilize and really have no purpose for it in America, but they utilize them there heavily. Right? You have tariffs on us, bro, on all of our products, and then you add that tax to it. Okay, so come on, bro. If you don't want us to tariff you, stop tariffing us. Right? Just because we're the richest country, right? And you're like, well, they should be fine with giving us all money, bro. Why are my U.S. tax dollars going to things and somewhere else, bro? That's not a thing. All right, we have issues in the country right now. We have issues, okay, and we have issues with other countries also. All right, if you're taking advantage of us and you're concerned why we're looking to put a tariff on your country, why are you that concerned or confused? Why are you confused? Okay. Like, I can't do all these free things for you, and then when you do something for me, I have to pay you for it. Bro, it's a problem. But all right, listen, you guys all have an absolutely amazing day. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys.